During this call, we will discuss our business outlook and make forward-looking statements. These comments are based on our predictions and expectations as of today. Actual events or results could differ materially due to a number of risks and uncertainties, including those mentioned in our most recent filings with the SEC.
Hello everyone and welcome to Kilowatt. My name is Bodhi and I am your host. And on today's episode, we are going to cover Tesla's Q3 2023 earnings call. And I'm going to be honest with you, this was like attending a funeral. It was kind of sad. And at one point, Elon got emotional. And the whole earnings call got off on the wrong foot. Like for a portion of Elon's opening remarks, there was nothing. Like we couldn't hear anything because Elon was on mute. And then somewhere throughout the presentation, in the middle of the presentation, I don't know what happened, but they went on mute again for some reason. I don't know. So this was not a great earnings call in terms of technical stuff. I've already been very clear on how I feel about these companies and their audio quality, which is terrible. When it comes to these things. I mean, if you're going to record them, if you're going to take the time to record them and put them out for investors and nerds like us, then make them sound good. You have that ability. You are a multi-billion-dollar company. But no, this is what we get. So despite the technical difficulties that they had, we also had some issues with just Elon in general. Elon was very, very pouty. I know that's maybe not a nice way to describe a grown person, but he was pouty. He was very pouty, and like the news that they gave wasn't bad news, honestly, but it was delivered in such a sad, sacky way. They're getting slammed in the EV media about this really off-putting earnings call. Their stock price also took a 10% hit. I don't know if it's recovered at this point or not, but yeah, it just wasn't a good earnings call. And I'm not saying this because what they talked about on the earnings call wasn't true, or there wasn't any, I'm not expecting it to be sunshine and rainbows. It was just like, it was a very, very down Elon. And like, I don't know if I mentioned this yet or not, but he got emotional, and I put that part in there. And I think some of the problems or some of the criticism Tesla's facing in terms of not being able to get Cybertruck out and some other things is based on their communication to the public. But we're going to talk all about that. We have a nice long earnings call to get through that. Actually, the clips I have only total about 36 minutes, so this episode won't be too terribly long in terms of earnings call episodes. Now, I do want to say, despite the fact that the earnings call, the live streamed earnings call, had some dead space in it in terms of audio, Tesla did release the full audio version of the earnings call on YouTube. So that was really good of them to do. So thank you for Tesla. Thank you to Tesla for doing that. Despite having the full audio to reference, I actually cut quite a bit of Elon's opening remarks out because they just weren't interesting, and it wasn't anything that we didn't already know. Some of the things that he talked about were, the standard opening remarks that he does. He talked about downtime at the factory so they can retool some of the lines. He did say that he thinks that AI will make Tesla the most valuable company in the world. Maybe that's true, maybe it's not. He talked a little bit about full self-driving. He said FSD 12 is coming along. He actually said more than that, but in reality, it's just they're making progress on it. Nothing groundbreaking in this. He talked about energy storage. It sounded impressive, but I have no idea if what he was talking about is a lot or a little bit, since I'm not really familiar with the world of commercial and industrial energy. And then he started talking about Cybertruck. So I'm going to play that clip for you here.
The Cybertruck, I know a lot of people are excited about the Cybertruck. Yeah, I am too. I've driven the car. It's an amazing product. I do want to emphasize that there will be enormous challenges in reaching volume production with the Cybertruck. and then in making the Cybertruck cash flow positive. This is simply normal for when you've got a product with a lot of new technology, or any new vehicle, brand new vehicle program, but especially one that is as different and advanced as the Cybertruck, you will have problems proportionate to how many new things you're trying to solve at scale. So I just want to emphasize that while I think this is potentially our best product ever, and I think it is our best product ever, it is going to require immense work to reach volume production and be cash flow positive at a price that people can afford. Often people do not understand what is truly hard. That's why I say prototypes are easy, production is hard. People think it's the idea, or you make a prototype, you design a car, and it's not as though designing a car is just anyone can do it. It does require taste. It does require effort to design a prototype. But the difficulty of going from a prototype to volume production is like 10,000% harder to get to volume production than to make the prototype in the first place. And then it is even harder than that to reach positive cash flow. I just want to temper expectations for Cybertruck. It's a great product, but financially, it will take, I don't know, a year to 18 months before it is a significant positive cash flow contributor. I wish there was some way for that to be different, but that's my best guess. To make it, and to make it at a price that people can afford. Insanely difficult things. And lastly, I wanted to thank all of our employees who are making a lot of extra effort during uncertain times. Thank you very much for your hard work and the impact that you're making.
All right. I will say in this instance, Elon was probably his most hinged. He goes off on some tangents in this earnings call, and he's done this a couple of times. He did it really bad when Model 3 was kind of, production hell was at its peak, and he just lashed out at a bunch of analysts that were for asking stupid questions in his opinion. So as far as Cybertruck goes, Tesla has pushed the Cybertruck delivery date to November 30th, 2023. Now, who knows if Cybertruck will actually be delivered on that day or not, and maybe they'll need to push it again to January 30th, 2023. I don't know. I'm guessing we will see a delivery between 5 and 15 trucks in 2023. Maybe 25 trucks on the outside chance, right? I'm curious though, how many trucks do you think Tesla will deliver in 2024? If you have thoughts, email me, Bodie, BODIE at 918digital.com. Now, moving on, Elon spoke on challenges. And here is where my empathy ends, right? Tesla had 4 years to figure this out. Now, they did have a pandemic and shortages of parts and chip shortages and all that stuff. I'm just saying they had 4 years to make a plan, only to find out it was even going to be harder than they thought it was. They built an impossible truck to build, and they thought they had some of the things figured out, and it sounds like they're like, you know what? It's going to be much harder than we thought. And I'm kind of frustrated with Elon when he's constantly saying people don't understand this, people don't understand that. What a lot of people don't get. That is a really arrogant way to talk. I think rather than pointing out what Elon thinks that people don't understand, because there's a large swath of people who do understand this stuff, rather than pointing that out, it's better to educate and say, here are the challenges that we thought we were going to see. Here are the challenges that we actually saw. Here's how we overcame some of these challenges. And here's what we're working on at the moment. Constantly saying, well, people just don't understand this. People don't understand that. He's going to say that a lot in this earnings call. And it's getting old on me anyway. It's getting old. I actually did not immediately record this episode after the earnings call, because I was like, you know what, if I record this right now, it's going to be really negative, and I feel like I'm falling into that a little bit, but I gave it a couple of days on purpose. Elon's talked about, people don't understand production is hard, prototypes are easy. People don't understand that autonomous driving is hard. People don't understand that, people don't understand squishmallows. I don't understand squishmallows. My point is that Elon will be talking about something and he'll color it with this, rainbows and unicorn and tulip world about, what Tesla's doing and how close they are to full self-driving, how much they've got 4680 battery cells figured out, how much they've got the Cybertruck production figured out. And he'll say, this, don't get me wrong, this is going to be hard. But he puts such a rosy spin on it when it's not, and people push back on this, then his answer back is people don't understand. And in reality, you should be like, yeah, we're 3 years late on this truck. We apologize. Let me give you some answers. I don't know. I'm not going to belabor this, but it's really irritating. The people don't understand messaging that he's putting out there. Pick a message from a Tesla standpoint, not from an Elon standpoint, and stick with it. Update it when it needs to be updated, but, pick a direction and go that way. And then don't get on Twitter and, tweet 3 words, Cybertruck is going to be amazing or whatever. Cybertruck might be 1 word. It is amazing. Yeah, 3 words. There we go. Don't just do stuff like that, because all you're doing is you're propping up that hype cycle, but then when you don't fulfill your promises, you look like a dope. So it's just, I don't know, it's really, really irritating to me. Elon did mention no volume production on Cybertruck and no profitability until 2025. We're in October 20th today. In 40-ish days, we're going to get a delivery event for Cybertruck. We still don't know specs. We still don't know pricing. It goes without saying that the Cybertruck is going to be so hard to build that Tesla's going to lose money on every single Cybertruck. It's just a matter of how much until they can, figure out production and then hit volume production. But yeah, man, it's a mess. It's a mess. And I think Elon's right to be somber, but it's his fault. Like, he picked a hard vehicle to produce. It's probably going to be fantastic, but he picked a hard vehicle to produce. And then when 4 years after the announcement and 3 years or 2 years after it was supposed to be out, he doesn't, it's not that he's not closer to releasing it than he was in 2009, but the Tesla's behind, and people want answers, and people are frustrated. People are still going to buy the truck. Maybe not everybody, but people are still going to buy the truck, but they want answers. And he's not giving answers. He's putting the problem back on the people who don't understand these things. And it's really his problem and Tesla's problem. They're the ones that don't understand that people were promised a truck and they're waiting patiently, and they're giving them no information, no updates, other than Elon's pithy little posts on X that all they do is generate hype. They don't answer questions. They're just vague hype. It's like empty calories. All right, let's move on to Tesla's new chief financial officer, Vaibhav Taneja.
Vehicle deliveries in Q3 outpaced production, and we had yet another record quarter of profitability in our energy business. Congratulations to the Tesla team for their continued focus on operational excellence as we navigate through a period of economic uncertainty, higher interest rates, and shifting consumer sentiment. As Elon mentioned, our Q3 operational and financial performance was impacted by planned downtimes for our factory upgrades. This was necessary to allow for further factory improvements and production rate increases. Despite such factory shutdowns, our cost per vehicle decreased to approximately $37,500. We saw sequential decreases in material costs and freight. Reducing the cost of our vehicles is our top priority. On the operating expenses front, R&D expenses continue to rise due to Cybertruck prototype builds and pilot production testing, combined with spend on AI technologies like full self-driving, Optimus, and Dojo. We have and will continue to make investments in these areas, and hence our capital expenditure and R&D will continue to grow in the near term. However, our focus is to continue making investments through positive cash flow from operations. This year itself, we have generated operating cash flows of approximately $8.9 billion and free cash flows of approximately $2.3 billion. Our other businesses are becoming more prominent on a standalone basis, with energy business leading the charge primarily from the growth in megawatt deployments. Our services and other businesses on a year-on-year basis also continue to show positive momentum as we benefit from our growing fleet. As regards our pricing strategy, in addition to what we have shared before, I want to elaborate that most car buying happens with one or other form of financing, and hence we also view pricing in terms of monthly costs for the customer. And therefore, as interest costs in the US have risen substantially, it has required us to adjust the price of our vehicles to keep the monthly cost in parity. We've tried to offset such adjustments via our focus on reducing costs. However, there is an inherent lag in cost reductions, which in turn impacts margins. To that extent, we recently announced a partner vehicle leasing program in the US, whereby you can get a standard range Model Y for as low as $399 a month. In conclusion, as we navigate through a challenging economic environment, we're focused on reducing costs, maximizing delivery volumes, and continuing making investments in the future, in particular AI and other next-generation platforms. We believe this strategy positions us well for the long term. Once again, I would like to thank the Tesla team for their efforts in the last quarter.
All right. I don't have a lot to add to this. I do want to highlight that the average build cost for Tesla for each car is approximately $37,500. So that's the average, right? Like the Model Y obviously is going to cost more. The Model 3 is probably going to cost less than that, obviously, because it's averaged out. I don't need to explain how averages work to you folks. The other thing I want to talk about is he mentioned monthly payments and lowering the price of the car to meet people's monthly payments needs. This is something that Elon hits on a lot. So I'm not gonna belabor it here because honestly, I spoke way too long after Elon's opening remarks. I'm just giving you that heads up. All right, let's jump into our first investor question.
Can you provide a progress update on the 4680 cell, particularly progress towards performance improvements and cost savings outlined on Battery Day? Thank you.
Sure thing, Martin. 4680 cell production in Texas increased 40% quarter over quarter. Congrats to the Texas team for producing their 20 million cell off of line 1. Texas is now our primary 4680 facility. We're heavily focused on quality. Scrap is down 40% quarter over quarter. With the increased volume and yield improvements, cell costs consistently improved month over month within the quarter, although we have a lot more work to do to achieve our steady state goals. And that is our priority. The Cybertruck cell with 10% higher energy than our Model Y cell started production on line 2 in Texas. This quarter, we convert to building 100% Cybertruck cells to simplify and focus the factory as we ramp all 4 lines in phase 1 over the next 3 quarters. Phase 2 of the Texas 4680 facility is currently under construction. The additional 4 lines incorporate further capital efficiencies over phase 1, and our target is for them to start producing in late 2024. Lastly, in Cato, we're retooling to enable large-scale pallet runs of our next-generation cell designs. Cato's long-term goal is to be the launch pad for new cells, 1 generation ahead of our mass production facilities, enabling faster iteration and smoother ramp-ups of new designs.
So it sounds like the 4680 cell is progressing nicely. Not a great update, but that's the one we got. A couple of things that I did not include in this is how many Cybertrucks do you anticipate in 2024? Short answer is they don't know, and they didn't give us any sort of color on that, if I could take a term from the analysts. Elon did say that maybe they'd be able to hit 250,000 in 2025, which kind of seems like a little bit of a leap. But that's only 4,800 Cybertrucks per week. So if they can figure out how to, produce these things, that's 4,800 isn't a lot. Let's see here. Giga Mexico is progressing slowly because Elon is worried about the economy and macroeconomics. He mentions that quite a bit. There's a lot of macroeconomic talk. Elon's also very concerned about the high interest rates, which you heard the CFO talk about. And, people won't be able to afford cars because the interest rates are too high, which is interesting because, for reference, right, in January 2023, my car that I own right now would have cost me $65,995, according to Ars Technica. So in January of 2023, that car was $66,000. I bought that car in April, just a few short months later, for $48,000. So, they're saying they're bringing the prices down of their vehicles so that people can afford the monthly payment. I literally during the show, I'm going to do a little bit of math that doesn't quite add up as far as I'm concerned. So there's a lot of really smart people who listen to this show. So check my math. Let's go ahead and move on to our next question.
When do you expect Model 3 Highland to be available in the US? I just wanted to address that. Unfortunately, we don't answer product-related questions and timings on earnings calls.
Except they do talk about product-related thing. They just talked about the Cybertruck. They just talked about, Robotaxi, or they're going to be talking about it soon. Maybe I'm getting confused where I am in my timeline right now. But they talk about all this stuff. They talk about full self-driving. They talk about the 4680 cells. There's no difference between that and the Model 3 Highland. Now, I can understand if you were like, let's talk about the new affordable Tesla that has not been unveiled yet. I can understand that. They're like, nah, we're not going to talk about that. But you've literally unveiled this car in Europe. It's in China, I believe now. It's a legit thing to say. It's a legit question, is when is the Highland going to come to the US? If you don't want to answer it, just don't answer it. If you're like, well, we don't talk about products and timing on earnings calls. Yes, you do. You absolutely do. Don't lie. Right. I am failing and not getting upset. So it looks like our next question is about robotaxi. So let's just go ahead and listen to that.
Do you have an approximate timeline in mind for the robotaxi, driven or non-driven? What excites you most about how this project is progressing?
Well, the robotaxi is necessarily non-driven. I guess I'm very excited about our progress with autonomy. The end-to-end, nothing but nets, self-driving software is amazing. I drives me all around Austin with no interventions. So, it's clearly the right move. So it's really pretty amazing. And obviously that same software and approach will enable Optimus to do useful things, and enable Optimus to learn how to do things simply by looking. So, extremely exciting in the long term. As I mentioned before, given that economic output is number of people times productivity, if you no longer have a constraint on people, effectively you've got a humanoid robot that can do as much as you'd like. Your economy is quasi infinite, or infinite for all intents and purposes. So, and I don't think anyone's going to do it better than Tesla, not by a long shot. Boston Dynamics is impressive, but their robot lacks a brain. They're like the Wizard of Oz or whatever.
It means
Yeah, lacks a brain. And then you also need to be able to design the humanoid robot in such a way that it can be mass manufactured. And then at some point, the robots will manufacture the robots. Now, obviously, we need to make sure that there's a good place for humans in that future, and we do not create some variant of the Terminator outcome. So we're going to put a lot of effort into localized control of the humanoid robot. So basically anyone will be able to shut it off locally, and you can't change that even if you put like a software update. You can't change that. It has to be hard coded.
All right. So the beginning of this answer is awful. Like, it's a good question. I don't know what they expected for an answer, but the beginning was awful. Like, Elon did not have a direction he was going, so he pivoted to Optimus. And, that's fine. Really, where they're at right now is, they're trying to get FSD up and going. And in order for Robotaxi to work, FSD has to be reliable and, fully functioning. Otherwise, Robotaxi doesn't work. That's not to say Robotaxi needs, or FSD needs to be 100% perfect. That would be, a ridiculous expectation. It just means it has to be able to operate without anybody in the car and without Tesla, playing with the video to make it look like the car's driving on its own, which they did not that long ago, and it really wasn't. But a couple years ago. But I don't have high hopes that Robotaxi is around the corner. Elon, remember when I mentioned this, Elon says people don't understand how hard it is to do something. It's comments like this where he's setting those expectations for Optimus, like the robots are going to build the robots, and this ramp is going to be, once we get this figured out, then they will steadily march, and it's not the case. We're going to have lots of stumbles. And you can hear his whole demeanor pick up when he shifts to Robotaxi, or when he shifts from Robotaxi to Optimus. But his demeanor on Optimus, he doesn't have anything to say there, and maybe he doesn't want to say anything. I don't know. On the Optimus, side of things, I don't want there to be a Terminator, so I'm really glad that they're going to have a hardware shut-off switch built in. That is something that you can, if it goes crazy, you can just shut it off. Here's the thing. Robots don't feel pain. And if they decide to get violent, how many people is it going to take to tackle that robot so that you can turn off the switch? Like, is it going to be on the Achilles heel? Where's the switch going to be? How easy is it going to be to touch? Is it going to be on the forehead? How are we going to do that? It can't be hidden, because if the robots decide to get violent, and I don't think this is going to happen, I'm just being, sarcastic, but if the robots are going to get violent, the off button, or the easy button here, needs to be real easy to find. All right, let's move on to our next question.
Why was the price dropped on FSD if it is getting better and Robotaxi is expected so soon?
Well, we just wanted to make it more affordable, so more people could try it. I think over time the price of FSD will increase proportionate to its value. So I would regard the current price as a kind of a temporary low.
All right, I have thoughts about this. First of all, you reduced the price of FSD because people weren't buying it. The FSD take rate was low. Like, if the FSD take rate was super high, people are trying it, but they're not trying it, so you had to reduce the price. And right now, this is not a temporary low. This price, $12,000, is still very high. It's too high. Like, I think I've said this in the past, but $5,000 is probably where I would be comfortable spending money on FSD. $7,000 would be a stretch, but anything over that is ridiculous. And I wouldn't pay $2,000 for enhanced autopilot. that's something that other cars come with standard. There's a lot that's in it, not everything. There's a lot in enhanced autopilot that comes standard in some of these newer cars, and they're holding on to their holy grail, which is FSD. Unfortunately, these other car companies are catching up. All right, let's move on to our next question. Oh, by the way, before we get to the next question, if you noticed in the FSD pricing question, there was a long pause between when Martin asked the question and Elon answered. That was not an editing mistake on my part. That was a very deliberate. I left that in deliberately because normally I'll shorten this stuff down because I don't want you to have to wait long periods of time for dead air. But that just kind of goes to show how Elon was answering these questions. Like there's lots of long pauses. There's lots of word he just kind of fades off into rants, and there's lots of questions where he says words, but they don't seem to make a lot of sense to me. So, all right. Now let's get to that other question because I'm doing what Elon does, and I'm really good at that. I'm really good at going off topic. Let's get to that question.
The next question is again on FSD. Mercedes is accepting legal liability for when its level 3 autonomous driving system Drive Pilot is active. Is Tesla planning to accept legal liability for FSD? And if so, when?
Well, there's a lot of people that assume we have legal liability, judging by the lawsuits. We're certainly not being let off the hook on that front, whether we would like to or wouldn't like to. So,
I mean, I think it's important to remember for everyone that Mercedes' system is limited to a few roads in Nevada and some certain cities in California. It doesn't work in the snow or the fog. It must have a lead car, marked lanes, only 40 miles per hour. Our system is meant to be holistic and drive in any conditions, so we obviously have a much more capable approach, but with those kind of limitations, it's really not very useful.
I think some people understand the profundity of the Tesla AI system, most people, but very, very few. It's basically baby AGI. It has to understand reality in order to drive. Baby AGI.
Again, they did not answer the question here. They completely ignored the question and poo-pooed Mercedes level 3 driving. Like Mercedes is choosing to test their level 3 cars how they decide to test their level 3 cars. That is up to them and whatever governmental regulatory board oversees that in that certain state here in the United States. For Tesla to be like, well, it's only on 2 roads in Nevada and 1 road in LA or whatever it is, and not really it's not very vast. It doesn't work in snow, all that other stuff. That doesn't matter. Like the question was, will Tesla take legal responsibility if a car gets into an accident while using full self-driving? And if you have confidence in your platform, if you have confidence in your software, in your hardware, then the answer to that is yes or no. Yes, because we have confidence in it. No, because people might, not use it in the way that it's agreed to or whatever. I mean, there's a myriad of answers there, but all they did was dump all over Mercedes what they're offering. And then Elon gets some random nonsense about Tesla's AI. And again, it's just like, I don't have a problem with Elon, don't have a problem with Tesla. But you were asked a question from an investor. Answer the question, yes or no. Like, they're in nowhere in there did they address it. Elon mentioned that they're being sued, so it's like they're holding, it's like they're taking legal responsibility for it, but they're not. Like, they're not. What you literally if you build a product and someone gets hurt or killed, which is two of these lawsuits that were the most recent high-profile FSD lawsuits. If someone dies using your product, there's a high likelihood that you're going to get sued. Doesn't matter if it's GM, Ford, Stellantis, whoever. Like, it's not like these companies have not been sued before over some sort of wrongful death claim. I don't know. The answer is yes or no. And then you can tell me why after that. The answer is not to dump all over your competition and then tell us how great your AI is. Because if it was great, you'd be like, yeah, we're going to stand behind this legally, as long as everybody's following the rules that were set down. But you didn't. You just crapped all over Mercedes. All right, let's go ahead and get to analyst questions. The first one is about the next gen platform.
It sounds like you don't think the truck will ramp to significant volume until its third year of production. Should we have a similar anticipation for the ramp of the next gen platform, or is there any reason that we should be maybe more optimistic or pessimistic about the ramp profile there? Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, to be clear, it's not really the third year of production. It's kind of like the 18th month of production is roughly my guess. So it's just that it'll happen is that it starts this year, spans next year, and gets to 2025. So technically there are 3 calendar years in there, but there's actually only 18 months, not 3 years. I would be very disappointed if it took us, and that would be shocking if it took us 3 years. Mm-hmm. But 18 months from initial deliveries to reach volume and reach prosperity with an immense, I can't tell you how much the blood, sweat, and tears level required to achieve that is just staggering. I've been through it many times. And then here we go again.
Similar path for the next gen platform?
I mean, there's like unique complexity to Cyber.
Yeah. I mean, Cybertruck is.
Let's be honest.
Yeah, I mean, we dug our own grave with Cybertruck. You know, nobody. In general, I find like nobody digs their grave better than themselves, and so, it is. Cybertruck is one of those special products that comes along only once in a long while. And special products that come along once in a long while are just incredibly difficult to bring to market, to reach volume, to be prosperous. It's fundamental to the nature of the newness. So now the sort of high volume, low cost, smaller vehicle is actually much more conventional.
In terms of like the technologies we're putting into it, we didn't have to invent how to bend full hard stainless steel or have mega 9,000-ton castings or the largest hot stamping in the world or new high voltage, low voltage architectures. It's learning from everything we've done. So we hope it will ramp faster than the technology.
We also went through like a ruthless simplification exercise.
Yeah, we did. There's significantly less parts and. Yeah, you're only as fast as the slowest part. If you have less of those, that means you could probably be faster.
Yes, exactly. I mean, that said, it's still
pretty revolutionary in how we're going to build it.
It is. Yes, it's the manufacturing approach for the high volume small vehicle is revolutionary, but not revolutionary quite in the same way as the Cybertruck. I think it will be quite a fast ramp. So as Lars was saying, we're doing everything possible to simplify that vehicle in order to achieve a units per minute level that is unheard of in the auto industry.
Yeah, I mean, the simplification makes it easier to automate. It also makes it lower cost. Yeah, like it's the intrinsically lower cost.
Yeah. Let's be clear, is It'll be cool, but it's utilitarian. It's not meant to be, fill you with, awe and magic. It's can get you from A to B. And it'll be still beautiful, but it's utilitarian. It's a utility.
Doesn't have 14 inches of travel on its suspension.
Yeah,
As an example.
yeah. So, I mean, the Cybertruck has a lot of bells and whistles.
I actually thought this was a good answer. Like, they talked about some of the challenges with Cybertruck and why they won't necessarily see those same challenges with the next generation platform, which I think is great. I mean, there's a whole bunch of stuff that has to fall in line to make that true, and hopefully it does. I do think they're being overly optimistic about it, but they outlined, the challenges. They outlined what they're doing to not repeat those challenges with like the next generation platform versus the Cybertruck, because the question is framed to kind of compare the two or whatever. So I think this is overly optimistic. We'll see what happens when they start production. One of the things that I want to talk about here, and I'm going to defend Elon as much as a podcaster who earns his living as a public servant can defend a billionaire, right? Elon said that they had dug their own grave with the Cybertruck. Now, this is being bandied about in the media as Elon admitting that the Cybertruck was a mistake. This is not what that was. You heard the context. I left it in. They were laughing. It's kind of like fatalistic humor. So this is not, I did not interpret this as, oh, we dug our own grave, now Tesla's going to fail or the Cybertruck's going to fail. None of that stuff. It was just a funny offhanded comment and not something that this is just being taken out of context. So let's move on to our next question, which I won't prep you for. I'll just let you listen to it because I have a rant coming up. It's going to shock you. So let's go ahead and listen to that.
As a follow-up, obviously price is also a driver of demand, but that's obviously not happening in a vacuum. And you mentioned that, I think you mentioned it at some point during this call that you're also maybe hitting the law of large numbers on some of your products. Can you just share how you're thinking about price elasticity just at this point and in this macro environment, and any thoughts along those lines?
I think that there's very significant price elasticity. I mean, to be totally frank, if our car cost the same as a RAV4, nobody would buy a RAV4. Or at least they're very unlikely to. It's worth noting that a lot of these incentives, like the tax credit and whatnot, they're actually very difficult for the average person to access because most people do not have 10 grand, or even $7,500 burning a hole in their bank account. Large number of people are living paycheck to paycheck, and with a lot of debt. They've got credit card debt, mortgage debt. So yeah, that's reality for most people. It's sometimes difficult for people who are high income earners. And I'd say high would be like someone who's earning over $200,000 a year, to understand what life is like for someone who is earning $50,000 or $60,000 or $70,000 a year.
All right, I'm going to pause it right here. Does anybody think that a person who earns $200,000 a year is that far away as from a person who earns $50,000 to $60,000 a year in terms of is that out of touch compared to a multi-billionaire who at one point was the richest man on earth or person on earth compared to a 50 or 60 someone who makes $50,000 or $60,000 a year? I would say the person who makes 200 grand a year probably interacts and hangs out with the people who make 50, 60 grand a year way more than Elon does. And for Elon to say, well, two people who make 200 grand a year are out of touch with the struggles of people who make $50,000 to $60,000 a year is asinine, and it's irritating. There's just something about the way Elon is talking about this that's irritating. Like, most people who make 56,000 or $50,000 to $60,000 a year probably aren't going to buy a new Tesla, right? There are some people in that income bracket that will save enough money to put down on so that they can afford a Tesla. They'll save a big down payment. There's some people who will do that kind of thing. When I worked at Micron, so many years ago, there was an employee there who really wanted a BMW, and we didn't make very much money at that time. He probably made a little more than I did, but he saved his money and he bought himself a BMW 3 Series, and he was really proud of that car. But it wasn't because he just went out and bought it. He had to save his money and get it. So, like, for Elon to say that somebody at $200,000 a year is out of touch with people who make $50,000 to $60,000 a year is just a gross misunderstanding of how people interact with each other. Like, I'm not saying Elon doesn't interact with people who make 50, 60 grand a year, but he probably interacts with more people who make millions of dollars a year or several $100,000 a year than he does the $50,000 or $60,000 a year folks. If I had to guess, it's just like that kind of stuff is just irritating to me. People are going to buy the kind of car that they can afford, and the kind that they like, and the kind of car that works for them. So if Tesla was Model Y was priced the same as a RAV4, for instance, and somebody really liked Toyota and somebody really wanted that RAV4, they're going to buy the RAV4. They're not going to buy the Tesla. The Tesla is not some talisman that you have to have. It's a car. Let's go ahead and resume Elon's answer. Oh, before we do that, I should say he's talking about tax credits. He's in the middle of talking about how the $7,500 tax credit doesn't work for people in the 50 to 60 income bracket because they don't have $5,000 to $10,000 laying around. Well, you still get, if you finance the car 100%, you will eventually get that $7,500 tax credit if you're in that income bracket. So I don't know what he's talking about here. Yeah, you're not going to get it. You're not, that $7,500 isn't going to come straight off the car, and that sucks. I really wish when I bought my car it would have come straight off the car. That would have made my payment much cheaper. But they will eventually get their tax credit, and this is something that's nice to have, and honestly not a necessity. It's there to spur the adoption of electric vehicles. So let's go ahead and let Elon finish up his rant.
So that, like, for a lot of people, like these tax credits, just they can't front $7,500 for 18 months or even 6 months to get for the tax credit, and they actually don't. It's okay to even have that. They don't have $7,500 in taxes. So, so it's really just the vast majority of people is how much money do they have to pay immediately and how much per month. That's it. And you can stop right there. And a car is still much more expensive than a RAV4 when you look at it that way.
Yeah, one other thing which I'll add, when you look at, car buying in general, we're trying to get to the next set of EV adapters. And
not an EV adapter, just
next.
Who wants a great car?
Exactly.
It's not sometimes you get these honestly, I'd say it's like somewhat correlates with the why doesn't everyone work from home crowd. I'm like, this is like some real Marie Antoinette vibes from people that say, why doesn't everyone work from home? Like, what about all the people that have to come to the factory and fill the cars? What about all the people that have to go to the restaurant and make your food and deliver your food? It's like, what are you talking about? How detached from reality does the work from home crowd have to be? while they take advantage of all those who cannot work from home. So, I mean, you have to say, like, why did I sleep in the factory so many times? Because it mattered.
Elon didn't have to sleep at the factory. I appreciate as a CEO that he went to the factory and he's on the line and he's trying to help solve problems. I have no idea if that was helpful for the engineers who are involved in that or not. I suspect that it was. But him sleeping in the factory is him, building myths, building a legend. It's not. He could have gone and stayed the night in a hotel or his house or whatever is around the factories. He didn't need to sleep in the factory. He chose to sleep in the factory because that's. I mean, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt and say that's what he thought he needed to do. But if he's sleeping, he's not fixing any problems. He's sleeping. And if for some reason they're like, Elon, we need you. If he's at a hotel that's 10 minutes away, that's 10 minutes away. He could have slept in a room with a shower or a bed, a hotel with a shower and all that other stuff and had some creature comforts, but he chose not to. And him choosing not to had very little effect on whether or not they solved the problems or not. I don't know. Again, the thing that sets me off about this part of it, if I'm being honest with you, is the Marie Antoinette vibe. He comes full circle on people not having enough money to buy a car. Not full circle. He kind of goes off half cocked, really, about people not having enough money to buy a car. And then there are other people out there who want to work from home, and how dare they? Because it's Marie Antoinette vibes. Like there's some people wanting to work from home or elite. Through my job as a firefighter, we go to people's homes all the time and they're working from home. And trust me, I do not work in elite neighborhoods. Like I have my fire station is in a working class area. It is not Scottsdale. It is not Cave Creek. It is not these really ritzy areas like Gilbert. Not all of Gilbert's like that, but it's a very there's a lot of humble homes here. There's a lot of hardworking people here, and there's still people here who work at home. I don't have any idea how much they make, but I suspect because they live in this area, they probably don't make, $500,000 a year. They're probably between, 60, 70, $80,000 a year, the median income here around here, just as a general rule. And I, as somebody who has to go to work and can't work from home because being a firefighter and work from home doesn't really work out that way. It doesn't work out too well. I think it's awesome that people get to work from home. And I would never say to somebody who was working from home, oh, geez, look at you, Mr. or Mrs. Privileged Pants. Oh, I have to go out and actually drive myself to work every day. There are people who want to go to work and be around people for their job. I'm not one of those people, but I chose a profession where I have to be, so I'm doing it. And there are people who feel more comfortable working from home. It's not a privileged Marie Antoinette thing. This is what works for you. Maybe you have 3 small children at home, and it's really hard for you to go to work, and childcare is ridiculously expensive. You got to make ends meet, and if you can take care of your kids and work from home, maybe you work more at night because you got to take care of your kids during the daytime. That's a thing people are doing. They're not elites. They're people trying to survive. And again, I'm an introvert. I would much rather work at home than come into work if I had a 9 to 5 job, but I don't, and that's okay. I just think Elon's very tone deaf here. People want to work from home for a variety of reasons. It's not just because they think they're better than the person who's making them lunch at the deli. It's because they have their reasons. And you know what? If that person that works at the deli was like, you know what, I really need to get a different job because of my reasons, and I think I need to work from home, there are jobs out there that will allow them to do that. Like, I don't know. he's very tone deaf. He gets emotional about sleeping in the factory. It's just it's his worldview, and if you fall outside of it, then you're wrong. All right, continuing on with Elon's a little bit of the answer here. He's going to jump back into the costs of the cars are higher because of the interest rates. Let's go ahead and resume.
So I just can't emphasize how important cost is. It's not an optional thing for most people. It is a necessary thing. We have to make our cars more affordable so people can buy it. And I keep harping on this interest thing, but I mean it just raises the cost of the car. I mean we're looking at an internal analysis, which I know we think is more or less on track. That when you look at the cost or the price reductions we've made in, say, the Model Y, and you compare that to how much people's monthly payment has risen due to interest rates, the price of the Model Y is almost unchanged.
If you factor in the change in interest rates.
Yes, which is that's what I'm trying to say. The thing that matters is the monthly pay. It's how much money do they have to put down, and do they literally have that in their bank account, or will the check bounce? And then what is the monthly payment? And it doesn't matter if that monthly payment is principal, interest, or whatever. It's just a number, and that number has to not cause their bank account to go negative. That's it. So going from near zero interest rates to the current very high interest rates, the actual monthly payment is basically the same. It's just a bunch more of it is going to interest. And there are some incremental challenges beyond that, which is the difficulty of getting credit at all has increased. And so the number of people who simply cannot get credit, period. Even if they've got a job and everything's solid, the banks are, a little gun shy on handing out credit, given that a bunch of them kicked the bucket earlier this year.
Yeah, there's also just fewer options. Even if they want to hand out credit, there's fewer banks to go to.
It's like, does your bank still exist?
Yeah.
Well, if your bank does not exist, you have to establish a relationship with a new bank. So a lot of regional banks are, died, and I mean, even Credit Suisse. I mean, geez, that was a shocker. Got a 160-year-old-ish Swiss institution that doesn't exist anymore. That's mind-blowing. And I think there's still quite a few shoes to drop on the bad credit situation. Commercial real estate obviously is in terrible shape. Credit card debt has been rising significantly. The credit card interest rates are usurious. Over 20% interest rates, meaning which over time it becomes obviously extremely punishing. Because if somebody's paying 20% interest on their credit cards, it means they cannot pay them off. Now, if you cannot pay them off and you're still accruing interest at 20%, that's headed to a bad place.
All right. So a lot of this stuff I actually agree with, in terms of credit card rates are too high, in terms of, there are less banks, less likely, or it's harder to get credit. There's lots of stuff that he's right on there. However, like we're in a very or what seems like, from my perspective, a chaotic time in history, and it's not the most chaotic time, obviously, but there's a lot going on, and lots of companies have had financial trouble, including banks, through COVID and all that stuff. So yeah, people are more cautious, even people who are consumers are more cautious. I know in my circle, most of my friends are a little bit more cautious when they go to buy something. But Elon said that with the rise in interest rates and the um, reduction in Tesla reducing the prices of their vehicles, the payment is basically the same. So Elon's saying if it was 2% interest and a $65,000 car, you're paying the same as you would at 6% interest and a $48,000 car, because the only thing consumers care about is the monthly payment. And I will agree that that's what a lot of people look at when they're buying a car is, can I afford this? Can I afford the monthly payment? They don't negotiate necessarily on price, they negotiate on that monthly payment. And as somebody who sold cars for about 3 weeks until I couldn't do it because I didn't like being around dealers and car salespeople, I can say that yeah, that's 100% true. People tend to negotiate the monthly payment and not the price of the car. Tesla does not negotiate on the price of their cars, so that's moot. It's the payment is what the payment is, right? So I did a little math. I went to GPT and I did a little math. So the Model Y was $65,000 in January. You can argue that January of 2023, by the way, you can argue that it costs more to build that car, that Model Y long range, in January, right? But Tesla was making money hand over fist. And I bought that same car for $48,000 in April. So I don't think the price of the Model Y long range came down that much. I mean, we're talking about like a $17,000 price cut in less than 2 months, or let's see, January, 2.5 months, $17,000 price cut in that time, because all of a sudden Tesla could build the cars $17,000 cheaper. Like, they were making money and they weren't apologetic about it at all when they were making money. Like, so much so that I thought that prices would never come down to the level that they were when Tesla introduced these models, or even close. Like over time, they're going to get more expensive, right? But I thought they were just going to stay in the $60,000 range because it looked like that's what Tesla was going to charge for these vehicles now, because people were willing to pay them. So I decided to test Elon's interest rate monthly payment hypothesis out, or statement out. So I looked at the interest rate in November of 2022. We're technically in October, but November 2022 was around 4 something percent. I went to ChatGPT and I asked it, based on a $65,000 car at the 4% interest, because I didn't actually write it down today. Oh yeah, 4% interest over 5 years, how much would that payment be? Now, no down payments, and we're not adding in taxes or anything. It's just a $65,000 car, no interest, or excuse me, no taxes, no fees. That would be a $1,274 monthly payment, which is pretty good, right? That's a pretty good bill right there, $1,274. Now, same thing on a $48,000 Model Y long range at 7.5% interest on a 5-year loan. That would be an $890 payment. I don't know about you, but if I were somebody who, you know, makes my car purchases based off of the monthly payment, I would rather pay $890 over $1,274. It's almost $300 cheaper to have a $48,000 car with a higher interest rate. And by the way, that higher interest rate, that money goes to the bank, right? That extra money goes to the bank. When Tesla was charging $65,000 on a car that had a lower interest rate, that money went to Tesla. And by proxy, eventually Elon, some of it, So it's not as if there's not a hidden interest there in wanting more money to go to Tesla and less money to go to the banks. Then I went to Tesla's website and I was like, what is Tesla offering for finance? And Tesla was offering a 7-year loan. So if you go with Tesla's 7-year loan, I can't remember what the interest rate was, but you put zero down, it's $780 a month. So I would not, I personally would not do a 7-year loan, but it's not the same. The picture that Elon is painting and Tesla is painting is not exactly the same. Like, people haven't all of a sudden, just out of the blue, decided that they're going to look at that monthly payment, and that's how they're going to determine if they can afford a new car or not. That didn't happen out of the last quarter. That has been happening probably for as long as car financing has been around. So I don't know. This isn't a new phenomenon, and you know what, I'm gonna stop. This podcast is running way too long as it is. I know I'm really ranty, but this whole thing is really irritating to me. All right, let's move on to our next clip.
You said in the commentary that you're not going full tilt on the plant in Mexico until there's signs that the economy is strong. Can you continue at a 50% CAGR without that plant? And where would that come from? And any color on what you mean, sort of not going full tilt? Could that plant get delayed indefinitely? Or what are we kind of talking about?
No, we're definitely making the factory in Mexico. We feel very good about that. We put a lot of effort into looking at different locations, and we feel very good about that location. And we are going to build a factory there, and it's going to be great. The question is really just one of timing, and I'm just going to be a broken record on the interest front. It's just the interest rates have to come down. Like if interest rates keep rising, you just fundamentally reduce affordability. It is just the same as increasing the price of the car. So I just don't have visibility into. If you can tell me what the interest rates are, I can tell you when we should build the factory. We're going to build it, and I think we'll start the initial phases of construction next year. But I am still somewhat scarred by 2009 when General Motors and Chrysler went bankrupt. So, well, that's now 14 years ago. That is seared into my mind with a branding iron. Because Tesla was just hanging on by a thread during that entire time, and and we closed our financing round in 2008 at 6 p.m. December 24th, Christmas Eve. And if we had not closed that financing round, we would have bounced payroll 2 days after Christmas. So we actually closed that round on the last hour of the last day that it was possible. Stressful, to say the least. And then barely made it through 2009. So I'm like, I don't want to be going at top speed into uncertainty. A lot of wars going on in the world, obviously, as well. And
we have room here, like in Giga, Texas. You said we still have room in this building. It's not full with Cybertruck and Model Y, and there's plenty of growth opportunities still to have inside the building where our team already is.
We also have 2,000 acres here.
Yeah, so there's also a bunch more.
We're actually only occupying a tiny corner of the land that we have. But we could technically do all the scaling necessary just here. Personnel is our biggest challenge in that the greater Austin area only has, generously, the greater Austin area only has 2 million people. So people are moving here, and they're willing to move here, but there is somewhat of a housing crisis. They got to live somewhere. So I don't know. I'm just curious. I'm not saying things will be bad. I'm just saying they might be, and I think Tesla is an incredibly capable ship, but it is but if we need to make sure if the macroeconomic conditions are stormy, even if the best ship is still going to have tough times, the weaker ships will sink. We're not going to sink, but even a great ship in a storm has challenges. Now, that storm will apply to everyone, not just us, and not just the auto industry. It apply to everyone, I think. So, apart from necessary sort of staples like food and stuff, but so I don't know. If interest rates start coming down, we will accelerate.
All right.
If anybody's got any guesses on this, I'd love to be less wrong. And I apologize if I'm perhaps more paranoid than I should be, because that might also be the case, because I have PTSD from 2009, big time. And in 2017 through 19 were not picnic either. That was very tough going. So, the auto industry is also somewhat cyclic. It's because people tend to hesitate to buy a new car, and if there's uncertainty in the economy. So it's car companies do very well in good economic times, and they don't do as well in tough economic times. So it's just. Whereas if somebody's selling bread, then I think that people still need to have bread. Yeah, yeah, you need bread. If you need food all the time, but new car you don't have to have right this minute.
Especially if there are wars going on, and then that impacts your sentiment.
Yeah, I mean, if people are reading about wars all over the world, buying a new car tends to not be front of mind.
All right, we're gonna end it here. Some of the things that they talked about in this last clip, I agree with. I think I've talked way too much at this point and expressed way too much of my opinion on this episode and maybe gotten a little preachy. So despite having issues with this clip as well, I'm just gonna leave it here because I feel like where I'm at. So, and I'd like to hear where you're at. So if you want, you can email me. It's Bodie, BODIE @918digital.com. You can find me on Twitter @918digital or X until Elon hears this and boots me off the Tesla, repossesses my car and boots me off X. Yeah, I don't know. It was just, I actually I listened to this on Wednesday. I edited it on Thursday with the thought that I would record it on a Thursday. And then I was like, you know what? I am going to be way too negative. I need to let this sit for another day. So I let it sit all of Friday. It is now 11:30 at night. And I'm finishing up the recording now. And I still am irritated. But again, I want to know your thoughts. So Bodie @918digital.com and then again 918digital on X. I hope you all have a wonderful day. I hope Elon has a wonderful day, and a wonderful weekend. I wish nothing but the best for everybody out there. So I am going to end this now, go take a shower, and then post it.